Here I am. I missed y'all so much, but it was so nice to take time off and spend it with my family. I'm gonna show y'all one of my presents right now. I'm not the kind of person that likes to show off things, but I know that y'all are going to be jealous, so I just want you to brace yourself for my Christmas present. Is this not the cutest thing? And there's a ton of rainforest facts on here, and I just love it, and it's just beautiful, and I actually haven't had time to read everything on it. It's a 10 out of 10 would recommend. And if you do want to look it up, I have a couple cups from this brand. I'm going to tag the brand. I'm not exactly sure where Ben found this, but I do know the brand. And I have a cat one, of course. And I have something else. A dinosaur one. And the dinosaur one's probably my all-time favorite. But now this one's my second favorite. So I'm thinking soft matte. I want to do a soft matte eye. I'm not sure where the colors are going to go. But what I am going to do, I'm not going to use this as base, but I'm going to go kind of around where I am going to put the base. And I'm using this particular concealer because it is a soft matte. And I don't know exactly what eye base I want to use, but I do want to put it right on my brow bone. And we can even put it just on the very top part underneath my brow. And I'm kind of pushing that into the brow here. I'm not carving. Not that I dislike carving, it's just not what I'm into at the moment. So we're just gonna take that, press that all on top of our brow bone. And the reason I don't like to use concealer for eye base is this is a little bit of a dry formula, and if I didn't want to set it, I wouldn't have to. But the way eyeshadow goes on top of concealer, it's not always the best finish. So that's why it's easier to just use an actual eyeshadow base. So I'm gonna take it, like I mentioned, this is our C31 brush. I'll go ahead and link it for y'all. In there. I like to do this. It just kind of gives me a guideline and also makes me feel like I don't need to quite apply as much later, because just by covering up that little bit of redness there, I already feel, you know, somewhat put together. Also, you could go in a little bit heavier and kind of create a guideline for your shadow. That's really fun too. We should do a video on that. Let me elaborate more on that. So what I was saying is, say you have hooded eyes, or you just kind of want to do a little pre-mapping. Take a pot concealer like this. These are, they're very special because they'll kind of create a line, a guideline because of the texture. It's a little bit thicker, but I don't want you to think thick is a bad thing. Thick can actually be very helpful in terms of mapping things out. So what we'll do is we'll take a little bit more on just the tip of the C31, and then what I'll do is I'll start from the bottom lash line, and I would just kind of create this map here. And that could be a really good guideline, especially if you have hooded eyes. And the reason why it's going to work for hooded eyes, I'm going to grab something pointy. I need something tiny. Oh, perfect. I'll just grab this. The reason it's going to work is because we're coming from the bottom here. So that's a good way to kind of map out, and then we'll add shadow and I'll show you. And then what I would recommend, I guess this is a hooded eye tutorial now, but this is just such a good, it's such a good technique because there's not one way to do hooded eyeshadow. And eye base, you're thinking, why don't I do this with eye base? You absolutely can, but the reason I'm going to recommend that concealer is because of that very specific stay in place texture. It's very thick. I wish you could, well, you can see how it's almost like putty. That's what we need. And eye base is not like putty. And if you're thinking the e.l.f. eye base, the e.l.f. putty eye base, no, just don't get that one because it's just not good for no one. So where we're going now is, even before we get eye base, I'm just going to show you really quickly that we can take an E27 and then we just go into, it doesn't have to be the darkest shade, just a little bit of a dark shade, pointy side, see how it's angled? Then we would just kind of just stamp here. And then now we have our guideline. Do you see how that's just going right there? It's because of the texture. I'm going to finish with eye base, but I had to get that out because it's super, super helpful. Super, super helpful. And even if you want to do a wing, you can. Even if you just want your shadow to kind of have a little bit of a lift to elongate that hooded eye, that's a really good tip. Okay, just had to get that little thought out of my head. Let's go ahead and put on our eyeshadow base. I'm going to use clean canvas today. Just give us a little bit more of a full coverage look. It's gonna look really nice with all the mattes I'm about to use. And then this is even going to stop where we put that concealer. See, that concealer acts like a border. And borders can really help when it comes to makeup because we all know about painting by numbers. So I want to use this. I just love these tones. Let's start with this shade. And then what I'm going to do is once we get the eye finished, I was going to go over everything with a little bit of my bronzer. I'm just going to scoot a little closer. I'm over here in the bushes. Okay, let's take that and just press that into the base. And while I have you here, let me give you a couple tips with a eyeshadow base like what we're using today. A lot of eye cream underneath this is not going to work, but a lot of eye cream underneath anything is not going to work. So make sure that your skincare is nice and pressed in, or just lightly tap it with a tissue, very lightly. And then there was something else I was going to tell you. Oh yes, make sure that when you're applying that eyeshadow, you are pressing that into that base. If you don't, if you put liner on later, it might transfer. You have to make sure that all of this is set just like we do with concealer. Now I'm going to take this shade and I'm just going to apply it right on. It ran away. You ever had that happen? If you ever do your makeup into a phone, I've been doing this, I don't even know how many, 10 years. I mean, I've been doing this almost 10 years, but I guess filming the way that I film now, 5 or 6, and still I'll flip this and I'll go, where did that eyeshadow go? Just me? Okay, let's leave it at that. So let's take that shade that we just picked up and we're gonna go ahead and just press that into the first shade that we laid down, just to cool it down a little bit more. Perfect. Then I'm gonna do the same thing over here. So I'm not going to blend this fully. We're going to leave that a little rough. And the reason why is because we're going to come back to that later with some bronzer. Where do we want to go now? I'm trying, do y'all hear Gene sleeping? He had a great holiday, if you're wondering. He's really rested up. He took some time off. He's still taking time off. So what I think I want to do is I want to just take some clean canvas. I'm not going to do a cut crease. Let's not do that. We ain't got time. Actually, I do have time. Actually, I have dinner plans with a friend, and I do need to brush my hair at some point, so we'll get that done. But I do have time. I've missed sitting here and hanging out with y'all. Let me grab a little bit more. Where did I put it? Perfect. Again, don't worry about carving. Just kind of cover that lid space. I am going to create a larger lid. It's going to make my eye appear larger. But when I'm saying that, do you see how that little line there? That's my natural lid. I'm going above that. Even if I'm not doing a cut crease, I am going to go above that. That way you're able to see just a little bit more lid when my eye is open. See how you're starting to see that right there? That just makes a little bit of a difference. It's not wildly impactful. So if you have hooded eyes, this is such a good tip, and the reason why. So just see that little bit, just a little bit, and we can soften it in a second, but then you can see how much higher that needed to go. See that? See that separation? And do that with your eye open. Okay, now let's go into this shade. And then we're gonna pack that on our lid, but I wanna brighten it just a little bit more, so we'll add a little bit of a white eyeshadow on top. That's what I do. Whenever I want a lid color that's kind of in this range that we're in right now, I do a darker shade, which you could leave it like this. It just depends on your skin tone. But then I'm going to take a cream colored shadow and I'm just going to tap that right on top just to lighten it a little bit. And if you really want to make the eyes pop a little bit more, grab that tiny brush again, the E27, picking up that same cream shadow. The cream shadow that I'm using is from the Patrick Ta palette, by the way, but we have a cream shadow in our collection. So I'm going to take that. Remember how we were talking about just coming out of that fold a little bit? Just tap that right above. And it's going to make the eye look so much larger. You can build it up more. It's going to be very subtle, or just however you like. That's up to you. Just do a couple stamps, see how you feel, see if you want to blend it out a little bit more. But for me, I just love just that tiny little bit just coming out of the fold, it makes such a difference. 3 hours later, and I finally found a brown. I didn't want a classic brown liquid liner. I wanted something a little different, a little bit more milk chocolate. These are from Danessa Myricks, and you can use them as liner, as eyeshadow, so many different ways. I'm gonna use this as liner with my E26 brush. I'm gonna relax my eye, go over all those little folds, and then I'm just gonna connect. Again, go over the fold. And then what I like to do is kind of, if you can't shut one eye at a time, all you gotta do is turn to the side and you're really able to connect everything together. And then I'll just continue to do that. And then I'm just gonna turn to the side, and it makes this so much easier. And then I like to open up really wide, and then I'll come from underneath. And what I mean from underneath is, see how this is bent? So easy. So instead of still trying to do it this way, we might still mess up. So if we turn this bent side, face it towards the ceiling, open up, and just come from underneath, it's so much easier. So easy. Here, let's do it on this side before we get started again. So much easier. I want to put this on my waterline, but I'm going to skip where my iris starts. So I'm going to leave the center bare. If you've ever wanted to kind of try a white eye pencil or a pencil lighter than your skin tone, but you find them a little bit jarring, just skip the center right there. Just stop right where the iris starts. Really keeping with the cat eye shape, we're going to do these Rochelle Beauty lashes in the style Full Moon. Okay, we're going to place them and let them get acquainted with the eye before we start clamping, because you see all that wet glue? We need to push it down a little bit more, but if I was to go in and start to push it down, it might still run the risk of wiggling around on the eye. So again, we're going to see how I have it here in the center. We want to place it first right there. Okay, let it get acquainted. We can at least place it here and then place it here, but then we still need to push it down to the waterline. No, not to the waterline, to the lash line, but they're still a little bit too loosey-goosey for that. Now we'll take our little clampers. These are from House of Lashes. And then we're just pushing our real lash into the false lash. That way there's that connect. And then we're making sure that this is on the skin right above our natural lashes. Let's use our Makeup Forever foundation. It's been a while since I've worn this one. I just looked at the clock. Maybe I do need to hurry. I've been piddling around. Just piddling. I've been in my room because I filmed a couple videos, but just to sit here, it's just so nice. Now we're going to start here. I will say I love this foundation, but do not try to pick out a color just off this swatch, because with most long-lasting foundations, you need to wait till they dry down completely before you start to choose the shade, because you will go home with the wrong shade. You absolutely will. You need to wait and see where that's going to go. That's not a bad thing. Everyone thinks that oxidizing is such a bad thing. All it means is we just got to wait. We just got to wait till they dry. Even with a tinted moisturizer, I wait. You know, one of the reasons I love this foundation, I mean, I've done wear tests on this foundation. This is probably one of my top 5 favorite foundations of all makeup time. But I wear 1R, 1-2 in this. And then I also wear 1R, 1-2 in the powder foundation. And it's very rare that both formulas are that spot on. So that's a really big deal for me. And I feel like that was very thought out and very well executed. Let's go ahead and take that here. And I put a little less in the center always, because I'm going to put concealer there anyways. Anytime we can use smaller amounts of foundation, our makeup's going to wear better. The concealer has to be a secret for just a few more weeks. Gene doesn't like that it's a secret either. He doesn't even know what it is. He would if he would wake up every once in a while, but I don't see that happening. Gene! Sawing logs. So smooth. And when this does release, I'm gonna give you all just a hair of a hint. It's really not even a hint, but it's so ideal for concealer to be your right shade and undertone. You can have the best concealer formula in the whole wide world, but if it's not the right undertone or the right shade, it's gonna look horrifying, especially on your under eye. Your under eye just, it wants to betray you, especially if it's too light and too yellow on my skin tone, where I'm at in my age. So I'm gonna get my face pretty warm. That doesn't mean that I'm gonna use more of something. I'm just gonna go a touch darker. So these are the Armani drops. Normally I use shade 100, but these are shade 110. And I'm just gonna do 2 drops and I'll just place it with my finger. These are pretty pigmented, but they do keep, what am I trying to say? They don't go too transparent. I'm just gonna give you an example. The Charlotte Tilbury Contour Wand, it seems very, very pigmented when you first apply it, but it blends away almost to nothing, and that's not what we want. We really do want the warmth from these, but we don't need to use as much as we think because they do keep their pigment. They don't just blend away into the makeup abyss. So let's grab our C40 and make sure that we're doing stamping motions. Do you see how beautifully that blended out? Just a dream. And I feel like we can find these on sale quite often. I think we saw them on sale on Nordstrom. So just keep an eye out because they are a spicy price, but I feel like they go on sale all the time. And these are just so much better than the contour wand. And I know you're thinking, well, the other one's a contour wand. It's so warm. That was from a time where I feel, and we can have opinions, little spicy ones, but the contour one was from a time that was wonderful marketing. At the time when we named something contour, I was like, I want that. So it was still very warm and considered a bronzer to me because we've been here a while together. A bronzer is very warm and a contour is cool. And that contour wand was a bronzer. And then when I use something just a little bit darker, I'll take the edges and just blur them a little bit more with our foundation brush, kind of moving that foundation around that's on the face. Think of this as the lightest underpainting that we could possibly do. It just goes on top of it very lightly. It melts everything together. You get the most even blend, just completely seamless. I'm gonna wait till the end to put blush on because I wanna film just a quick little video on it. While I had some time off, I was searching for a dupe for this color. Yes, I can dupe this color, but I cannot dupe the effect that this blurring deliciousness of a formula gives us. This formula, and I don't know if it's a specific color. It's also really important to know that certain pigments they just work so nicely on the skin. Others, we've talked about it with eyeshadow, others can be a little bit harder to blend, a little bit more fragile, even a little patchy. But the pigments in this specific blush and the way that it's made, I can't dupe it. And it's so good. It is so, so, so good. I say 10 out of 10 would recommend. But I wanted to film a video about it because it's my new favorite blush, and I also feel that we're going to go back to peaches. I don't feel that pink is going to completely leave, but I feel like 2024, we're going to be peaching it up again. Now I'm going to take my favorite bronzers. I'm going to mix these two powders right here, M36 and then I forget this one. I don't use it as often. So of course 36 is the more red, and then M42. Anyways, we're gonna mix these two, and this is what we're gonna do, finish that transition with. But before we add any powder, I'm gonna go ahead and press this on top. You're gonna get a really seamless blend. But the trick is just to make sure that that foundation isn't too wet. And you're thinking, what the heck is too wet? This foundation dries down. I'm still going to set it with powder, but technically I am setting it with a powder because I'm using these two. So it's really, really going to be able to melt into that foundation because I didn't create a barrier with powder. Same idea as why we don't set our eyeshadow base with powder. We set it with the eyeshadow. So if you use a long wear foundation and you wait about 5 minutes, you're going to be able to do this and get the most seamless, even blend. And then you're even going to be able to get more coverage this way. So highly recommend doing this. You just got to make sure that your foundation isn't just absolutely just soaking wet. And I feel most of us know that threshold because applying your bronzer before you set, just like eyeshadow, makes a difference. You get more pigment, more coverage out of it, and you just get that beautiful, seamless airbrush finish. Now look at the difference. That's with our bronzer blended. And look at how beautifully that flows with all that bronzer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one, the darker one, M42, take it on the side of the brush, and I'm just going to tap it across the top part of our crease. Ben is extra early spring cleaning and making the biggest ruckus. So if you hear some ruckusing, that's Ben. Let's go ahead and use the same bronzer, but just switch to our smaller brush, and we'll do the same thing under here. The ruckus, that is ruckusing. I don't even know what's going on. He went into his closet today, his office closet, and he was just flabbergasted at the things that he was keeping and the things that were in there, and he was just like, absolutely not, this must go. It is time for spring cleaning. Switch to a fluffier brush now, and we're just gonna start to transition, and then we're gonna set. Remember, we still have it set with actual powder. Nice. Now we're gonna go ahead and set these under eyes, and I'm gonna set around here. And what I mean by around is, see how we're going around it? If I put too much translucent powder on top all at once, it might turn my bronzer a little too cool and a little too gray, and I want to keep it pretty warm today. This is still one of my favorite lipsticks at the moment. This is a lip cream from Patrick Ta, and the shade is Shy. I love it. I love the way that it wears. It's not a liquid lipstick. Think of it as a liquid cream lipstick, not a matte. It is a liquid lipstick, but when we say that, we think Anastasia Beverly Hills. This absolutely lasts. It transfers, yes, but it's so pigmented that it just stays on the lips, and it feels like you're wearing the most comfortable lip serum in the whole wide world. I just think that this formula is a 10 out of 10, and it was one of my favorite formulas of 2023. Let's go a little bit more red. I don't know why I'm doing this. So this is, pardon my French. This is one of those Sephora gel lip liners. You'll know how much I love these, especially with this type of formula, which I feel is going to be huge in the next year. So I like to do the lipstick first, and then I start to blend in the lip liner. Yeah, that's what I was after. And don't forget, I'm not done blending, but I wanted to take this time. That was my ankle popping. I am fine, but my ankles are very poppy, in case you're wondering. I'm gonna create my border with my powder foundation. This is that one I was talking about, the Makeup Forever, where I wear the same shade. But since this is a cream, let's clean up and create that border. All right, I'm gonna go run a brush through this hair. Actually, let me hop off and film that. Well, I'm gonna say goodbye to y'all. And I will definitely be saving this to my highlight because we're having technical difficulties with YouTube, but that will eventually be back under control. But if you are wondering, I have been saving, I'm starting to save them to my highlights again. So they're there in case you wanna go reference them. I love you all so much. Remember, the blush I'm gonna use is the one that I've already tagged. I like this lip. I like it with the look. I would have just done just a classic nude, but I thought this would be more fun. All right, I love you all so much. And tomorrow I thought we could talk about things that I just loved in 2023. So I thought we'd do that. All right, I love y'all so much, and I will see you tomorrow.